called Dharma, Karma and Moksha, Decoding Devlok and Devdutt. Mr. Jujhar Singh is a senior executive producer at the NewsX channel. He presents Nation at 9, the main primetime debate of the channel on Sundays. He also anchors and produces Art Talk, the highly acclaimed weekly art show on the channel, which has won him the Red Ink Awards for excellence in journalism. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Jujhar Singh on stage. Can we have a big round of applause for him, sir? And the next panelist I would not like to, he doesn't really need an introduction, but I would still like to mention a few words. We have Mr. Devdutt Pattanaik. Ladies and gentlemen, please give him a big round of applause. Uh, Devdutt writes on relevance of mythology in modern times, especially in areas of management, governance, and leadership. Trained in medicine, he worked for 15 years in the healthcare and pharma industries before he focused on his passion of writing full-time. He's the author of more than 30 books and 600 columns with bestsellers such as My Gita, Jaya, Sita, Business Sutra, and 7 Secret series. Please welcome Mr. Devdutt Pattanaik. Can we have a big round of applause for both our speakers? And I'll leave it to both of you, sirs. Thank you.
First of all, we'd like to thank the Dehradun Community Literature Festival for inviting us. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Dharma, Karma, Moksha. 3 very important words in our Hindu philosophy. And there are multiple meanings and interpretations to these 3 words. Now, I've been studying Vedanta philosophy of Hinduism for some time. So what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to give a very short introduction, a little bit of a description of how Vedanta looks at Dharma, Karma, and Moksha. And then after that, we'll open it up and decode with Devdutt Pattanaik because he has done a deep study of all of this and he has a lot more very interesting interpretations and insights into these 3 words. According to Vedanta philosophy, Dharma is that which can lead to either material or worldly prosperity or success, or it can lead to spiritual success as well, either of the 2. Dharma is that which leads to material success, abhyudaya they call it, and it can also lead to spiritual success, nishreyasa. And then we have our scriptures, our shastras, for example, the Karma Kand of the Vedas, chapter 3 particularly of the Bhagavad Gita, which then list out recommended karmas or actions for both of them. So if you want to achieve material success, there are 4 kinds of karmas or actions that have been listed out. First, there's nitya karma, daily duties. For example, if you want material success, you have to go to office every day. Then you have naimittika karma, which is occasional duties. If supposing a friend has had a child or somebody's had a bereavement that you go visit them. That happens once in a while. It's a duty. Third, then you have kamya karma, which are prompted by your own desires and wishes. If you want to make money, then you have to open a business, or if you already have a business, you must try and expand your business. And fourth, you have nishiddha karma. Prohibited karma is also there. For example, if you have a business, don't lie and cheat or commit a fraud or try and make 500, 600% profit because it may give some short-term material success, but it might rebound in the longer term. So this is if you want material success. If you want spiritual success, our shastras, our scriptures outline 3 karmas or actions. One is shravanam, listening to scriptures, listening to the wise men, listening to the sages, obtaining the knowledge. Second is mananam, reflecting on what has been heard. And third is nididhyasan. After doing shravanam and mananam, you contemplate on this. So in other words, dharma and karma can lead to material success and prosperity. It can also lead to spiritual success and prosperity. But Dr. Devdutt Pattanaik has done a deep study of the history and mythology, which has thrown up so many different interpretations and meanings to these three important words. So we'll begin by asking him, Devdutt, that what is first of all mythology, since you're an expert on mythology and mystical literature, what is mythology to do with Dharma, Karma and Moksha?
See, mythology is truth that is based on trust. So it doesn't care, it is indifferent to rationality, it is indifferent to proof. तो प्रमाण नहीं पूछता, विश्वास के ऊपर चलता है. So words like dharma, karma and moksha are based on faith, trust. I believe it, therefore it is activated. If I don't believe it, it is not activated. And that is the world of mythology. So ideas, God, justice, equality, these are all concepts that you believe there is justice in the world. But then you attend a session like yesterday when you hear about behind the bars and how people are treated behind jails, and you realize there's no real justice in the world. Or you talk about equality and then you hear about how transgender people are treated and you think, oh, so ye to maya hai. So you believe in things. I believe in God, I believe in justice, I believe in equality, I believe in dharma, I believe in karma. तो जहाँ पे प्रमाण नहीं होता, जहाँ पे लॉजिक नहीं होता, जहाँ पे विश्वास होता है, ये दुनिया का सच जो है, the truth based on trust is mythology.
So you're basically talking about the truths of the world, which are given out through story form. That's our mythology?
Yeah, so they're
like in the Puranas.
In the Puranas. So they're presented in the form of stories.
Yeah.
So they're presented in three ways: stories, symbols, and rituals. So the raw material for the study of mythology will always be a story or a symbol or a ritual. So katha hogi.
Which has a deeper significance.
Well,
or it talks about the relationship between man and other men and God. All of that.
Yeah.
Messages are there, but through story format.
One has to be careful with these, which has a deeper meaning. You see, it's like, look at a word and a meaning. Yeah. Can a meaning exist without a word? Because you have a meaning, but in order to communicate it, you need a word. Shabd ke bina arth nahi hota. So shabd is the container of meaning. In the same way, stories, symbols and rituals are containers of idea. We can say the idea is more important than the container, but if that is so, how do you transmit it? जब तक तुम्हारे हाथ में पात्र नहीं होगा, तो तुम उसको सामने वाले को दोगे कैसे? So if you care about other people, stories, symbols and rituals become important. And therefore, mythology is that which enables you to have a relationship with other people and share your ideas. If you don't care for relationship, then mythology doesn't matter.
Okay, just to get a few basic ideas out of the way. So what all includes mythology?
Story, symbol, ritual.
Okay, no, but in terms of our text, basically our literature, you have the Puranas first of all.
See, when you use the word text, please remember these are oral. For thousands of years, there was no text. Yeah. It was what is narrated. It's maukhik parampara. Yeah. So this is a colonial mind which values the text. Indian wisdom is not based on text, it's based on conversation. Some people have written that conversation down. Doesn't mean the written text is valuable. It is the conversation which is important. So sound is important, how I speak and what I tell you. And every narration is a story. So for me, a text is a story. So,
but I'll tell you why I'm asking you this, because there are a lot of people who don't perhaps even like the word mythology.
There are always people in the world.
Because they think it's demeaning. Ye bol rahe ki ye sab, matlab,
See, what happens is,
So my question to you is that what is mythology? What does it comprise of?
See, I told you, but you are not listening. The thing is, because we're
I think you know what I mean.
No, you're stuck. See, if you are telling me to align with a 19th century colonial definition, I refuse to do that. Because I'm a 21st century Indian who is not obligated to Europeans. Like, I'm not interested in what a British man described mythology as. I'm not interested. Go never.
Let me ask you a more specific question. What are Puranas?
So Puranas are mythologies. They are stories through which they are communicating dharma, karma, and moksha. They're stories. It's the way, if I were to ask you, tell me
That's
something.
what I was asking.
Yeah, so it's like, so it's mythology. Puranas are mythology, Vedas are mythology, Bible is mythology, Quran is mythology, the Indian Constitution is mythology, because they are through these narratives we are trying to establish human relationships. So there's no real thing out there. For example, the word dharma in the Constitution, they'll say dharma nirpeksh. Now that dharma meaning and the meaning you gave right now is completely opposites of each other. Because there, in the Constitution, the word dharma means religion. Dharma nirpeksh, secular. Indifferent to dharma. So if I were to use your definition, it sounds weird. A culture which does not value material and spiritual progress. But I have to be very clear, what is the meaning
But
in
I
the
think the
Constitution?
culture also recognizes that materials, not everybody can just shut their eyes and aim for spiritual success. It's an evolutionary process.
Jujhar, what am I saying? I'm saying the Indian Constitution defines dharma very differently from the way you defined it. And you have to be cognizant and respectful of that fact.
Yeah, sure, but there are many definitions of dharma,
Yes.
right?
For example, dharma is not just a Hindu concept, right? The word dhamma is used by Buddhists, it's used by Jains. The word karma is used by Buddhists and Jains. Jains would argue that the idea of karma and the idea of moksha comes from the Muni Parampara. It doesn't come. It has been introduced into the river called Hinduism by the Shramanas and the Jain tradition. So everybody has their own view. And I think we have to be respectful of different views which exist and then pick and choose. It's like a buffet table. My job is to create a great buffet table and let people decide, depending on their digestive capabilities, what they want to pick up.
Yeah, but with all due respect, Devdutt, I think our scriptures also recognize that there are multiple definitions of even the word dharma. For example, one definition is the essential nature of something, right? The dharma of sugar is sweetness. The dharma of fire is heat, because you can't have a coal fire. Anyway, I'll tell you what, because there's so many, there are obviously, as you said, many different interpretations and definitions. Let me ask you,
So you tell me which definition.
how do you define dharma, karma, and moksha?
So, my definition is dharma is that which enables you to be a human being, that enables you to take decisions that make you human. That's the thing, because it's based on the understanding of who a human. So when you say the essence of everything, just now you said, sugar has sweetness and fire has, that is inanimate. When you talk about human beings, you're talking about people with imagination. So what defines a human? The murderer will say, I'm doing my dharma, and the murdered will say, you're doing adharma. Who decides what is dharma and adharma? Karma is the ecosystem of actions and reactions in which we exist.
One second, just for the sake of clarity, let me just ask you before you go into karma. You say that dharma is basically the decision-making process.
Yes.
Correct?
It
Okay.
is that which, the decision-making process that enables you to discover your humanity. तुम्हारी इंसानियत जब तक निकलेगी नहीं, and therefore there's always dharma sankat. There's continuous conflict. Do I do this or do I do that? Do I do this or do I do that? What makes me human being? So तुम्हारी, and this is always a challenge, because every time in life you're taking decisions, the world of decision making is dharma. And when you speak of dharma, you, in the Puranic tradition, you will think of Vishnu. That is the word that will come to you continuously. But when you use the word karma, and you cannot ever explain dharma in anywhere in the world unless you accept karma. And karma cannot be understood without talking about rebirth. And unless you talk about rebirth, and therefore you talk of the goddess, because karma is the realm of the goddess. She is Prakriti, nature. Whether humans exist or don't exist, karma is always there. Action and reaction, causality, things are happening all the time around you, indifferent of human beings. Human beings are not, we are an anthropocentric view of the world, but for the goddess, we are just one more species. And we, in our delusion, gives ourselves too much importance. And she smiles because she's also Yogamaya. She is enjoying how we weave a tapestry of delusions around us that makes us feel there's only one definition for a word, and there is one correct answer for things, and there's one right way to do things, and she's smiling. And she says, look, the predator at work again, deciding how the world should function. And then comes moksha. Moksha as an idea is in the realm of Shiva. It is the realm of the hermit who is trying to understand this conflict between dharma and karma. The word moksha comes in Indian history much later. The oldest word is karma. Karma is there in the Vedas right from the beginning. Dharma is not so important in the Vedas. It becomes important only in the Dharma Shastras. And moksha as an idea becomes important very much later in Indian history. If you read the Mahabharata, they always talk of, when they talk of Purushartha, they talk of Dharma, they never talk of moksha. It's later, much later in texts. You know, for example, they start referring, moksha becomes an important idea because hermit traditions become important part of the Hindu traditions. So moksha as a tradition was very popular amongst the hermits. Dharma was very popular amongst householders. And karma in both cases. In both cases, you're dealing with karma. So when you see, if you go to Puranas and you read a Devi Bhagavatam, she is focused on the karma ideas. When you read Vishnu Puran, it is focused on dharma. And when you read Shiva Puran, it's focused on moksha.
I'm wondering whether you can share a story with us that actually shows, these three words.
So there's a story from the Mahabharata. There is a dove flying, and it is being chased by a hawk. And they fly into the king's court. There's a darbar ho raha hai, and there's, like monkeys are somewhere over here. Just suddenly a dove comes here, and then a hawk follows it. And you're feeling terrible that, the king sees this dove trying to escape. The hawk is with its talons out, its beak out, ready to eat the dove. And the king is moved by so much of compassion that he picks the dove and says, I will protect you. And looks at the hawk and says, you have to go through me in order to get to the dove. Because I am the Raja, I am the king, I am doing my dharma, I'm going to protect the helpless. The hawk smiles and says, very good, you are the Raja, abhi mujhe khana do. Abhi tumne to mera khana chhin liya. Because the nature, prakriti jo hai, has said, dove ko tu khayega. I didn't choose to be non-vegetarian. I was given claws and that's my food. मेरे बच्चे घर में भूखे हैं, मुझे खाना दो, अन्न दो, राजा. Now the king has to decide. He said, दूसरा, catch another dove. He says, why should another dove die so that this dove survives? He says, then eat a rat. He said, why should a rat die so that this dove survives? Who decided? Who gives you the right to decide who should survive? Why did you decide? Now that is karma at work. This is the goddess having a conversation with the king. And the Vishnu has to now decide, because you see, he is moved out of compassion, right? तुम राजा हो, तुम्हारा कर्म है कि जो बेबस लोग हैं, जो बेचारे हैं, इनको बचाना. लेकिन प्रकृति कहती है कि प्रकृति में तो कोई बेचारा नहीं है. संस्कृति में बेचारे होते हैं, प्रकृति में कोई बेचारा नहीं होता. So now this is dharma sankat. This is the king who has to decide. The king has to decide, will he save the dove or will he save the hawk? And of course you can't answer this question because it's using two categories. It's using a natural category and a social category. But of course the king, of course you read Amar Chitra Katha, they'll say the king gave pieces of his flesh equal to weight. But then equal to the weight of the dove, he gives ek maas ka tukda, dusra maas ka tukda, and the dove gets heavier and heavier and heavier. So he keeps giving flesh, and it's like, kitne mahan atma hai. And you're realizing the poet is cracking a joke because one day the king will die. उसके बाद तो हॉक को खाएगा, कभी ना कभी तो हॉक तो मरेगा ही. The thing is, the king is not realizing he's consumed by his ahankar, his desire to be the savior. तुम अपने आप को बोल रहे हो कि तुम लोगों को बचाओगे. You decided that the dove needs help. You didn't see the starvation of the hawk. You saw the fear of the dove. Problem किधर है? तुम्हारे दर्शन में है. प्रकृति में प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, तुम्हारे दर्शन में है, ऑब्जर्वेशनल कैपेसिटी. तुम इसलिए धर्म नहीं कर पाए, because you are doing dharma sankat, because you can't live with the idea that the hawk is going to kill the dove, then you will be consumed by guilt. And it is that which is motivating you, not compassion for the dove, but your obsession with your self-image. और इसे अहंकार कहते हैं. तो अगर प्रकृति होगी तो फिर धर्म आएगा तो अहंकार आएगा. फिर अहंकार से मोक्ष पाने के लिए आप शिव जी के पास जाओगे. And then he'll give you a pot and say, chalo, let's smoke a pot and talk.
What do all of us get out of this in the sense that we all having to make decisions every day, right? How do we make a decision? Because you have choices. How do you make a decision then?
Recognizing that no matter what you do, there'll be some people who will be happy and some people who will be unhappy. Sri Krishna ने धर्म स्थापना की. Everybody tells this part of the story. ये नहीं बताते हैं कि उनको गांधारी का श्राप मिला. तो धर्म स्थापना करोगे तो श्राप भी मिलेगा. लेने को तैयार हो. अब ये बात नहीं बता, मार्केटिंग डिपार्टमेंट नहीं बताएगा ना. मार्केटिंग डिपार्टमेंट केवल बोलेगा धर्म स्थापना धर्म स्थापना. अरे श्राप, गांधारी का श्राप. अभी श्राप, जो श्राप होता है वो कर्म कांड से आता है. इट इज कमिंग फ्रॉम द रेल्म ऑफ कर्म. गांधारी सेज आई डोंट केयर अबाउट योर धर्मा वर्मा इक्वालिटी जस्टिस नॉनसेंस. मेरे बच्चे मर गए, मेरे बच्चे मर गए, मैं तो तुम्हें श्राप दूंगी. और वो जो श्राप का, दिस महाभारत, दिस इज द ग्रेट Krishna standing over there and Gandhari saying, I curse you, I curse you, I curse you. And it's a horrific curse. When you read the curse and the description of the curse, how you will witness your children die. Prabhu, and the famous play by Dharmveer Bharati, where Prabhu ho, Pashu ke maut maroge. Prabhu, this curse, and Krishna is quiet. He's quiet because he knows what he has done. And the action comes from the idea of, because Gandhari is not taking responsibility for the fact that she spent her entire life not looking at her children. Patti bandhi thi bachchon ke. She doesn't want to take responsibility for that. She's not saying, I am responsible for the war. She's saying, you are responsible for the war. Exactly what we always do when we are unhappy, right? Whenever we are unhappy, we become Gandharis. And we say, galti tumhari thi. Meri galti to kabhi nahi thi. And Krishna wo dekh raha hai, wo muskura rahe hain. देखो गलती तुम्हारी, श्राप मुझे. बच्चा तुमने पैदा किया, तुमने डिसाइड किया कि बच्चे को मैं नजरअंदाज, जिसको कहते हैं, I will not look at my children. What happens to a child whose father is blind and mother is blindfolded? What happens to a child whose father cannot look because अंधा है, and माता जी कहती कि नहीं, मैं नहीं देखूंगी तुम्हें क्योंकि मुझे सती बनना है. You are invisibilized. Today we talk about the invisible other. लोगों को जो देखते नहीं है, हम देखते नहीं है लोगों की तरफ. यहाँ पे एक माँ है जो अपने बच्चों को नहीं देखती है. Those children become so insecure. They become so insecure that they're not able to handle that insecurity, and they become the Kauravas. And the great Mahabharata battle is fought. That is how you see Dharma, Artha, and Moksha. And this is how Moksha has to be understood. This is how Dharma has to be understood. This is how Karma has to be understood. It's not base set of commandments. It is the complexity of life. श्राप झेलने की क्षमता श्री कृष्ण में है.
So it is almost like Sri Krishna may have done whatever he had to do, try to uphold dharma, but whatever the actions in doing that, the reactions to that will follow. That's the law of karma.
Yes. And the question is, what therefore is Krishna doing? Remember, Mahabharata is a very simple story about sharing. Sharing. Sharing land. Zameen ko share karna. Which in modern economics will say sharing resources. When we use the word resources, it sounds so nice. Jameen bolte hain to और पुराणों में तो छोड़ ही दो. But जमीन से ही लड़ाई होती है ना. तो जमीन की एक कुरुकुल can feed 100 sons but refuses to feed 105 children. Says 100 लोगों के लिए हम खाना बनाएंगे लेकिन 5 लोग आप घर से निकलो, तुम्हारा कोई अधिकार नहीं बनता. And nobody has a problem with this very basic, because तुम्हारा हक नहीं बनता. You're not legitimate. Legitimacy comes into the picture. कि तुम, and it's, look at the question. 100 princes cannot afford, because Krishna in Udyoga Parva is telling, 5 गांव दो, 5 गांव दो, शांति रखो, शांति रखो. I will convince the Pandavas that आधा जमीन नहीं लेना, 5 गांव देना उनको. और दुर्योधन वहां कहता है, सुई की नोक जितनी जमीन नहीं दूंगा. I will not give an inch. Very much like television debates, right? You are valorized for not giving an inch. And this is what we don't understand. You have to move quickly from the physical to the psychological. If you don't move from the physical to the psychological, do I give an inch? Because you see, nowadays in education, when you do a PhD, it's a very violent process. You are asked to defend your thesis. किससे से लड़ाई कर रहे हो यार? पढ़ने के लिए आए हो. Defend का मतलब क्या हुआ? योद्धा बनने आए हो क्या? But that is the language of education. And you have to not yield an inch. That shows तुम्हारी वीर गाथा कही जाएगी. क्या argue किया? There are lawyers amongst us from Supreme Court. Where are they? Who will not give an inch. और कोई उनको कौरव नहीं बोलता. है तो कौरव ना, महाभारत ही होगा. लेकिन कौन पुराण शास्त्र पढ़ता है सर? It is meant for uneducated people. We shall read Upanishads.
Let's have another story. I'll tell you. You've talked about, given the example of Lord Krishna and the Mahabharata and the decisions that he had to make. Let's look at Lord Ram and the Ramayana as well, because perhaps one of the most controversial decisions that he had to make was letting go of Sita after the people were casting aspersions. How did Lord Ram make that decision?
You see, Ramayana is a story of a man who cannot make choices and a woman who makes choices. That's the Ramayana. वाल्मीकि रामायण अगर समझना है तो एक पुरुष है जो डिसीजन नहीं ले पाता. क्यों नहीं ले पाता? Because वो वर्णाश्रम धर्म में अटका हुआ है. And the whole thing is that you are divinity who is born in a male body, not any male body, but a male body in the royal family. Not just any royal family, the Raghukula, and not just anyone, you are the eldest in this family. Which means rules have been decided for you. This is the way you're going to behave. And your obligation will always be family integrity, family honor, family brand. तुम्हारा कोई importance नहीं है. सब रघुकुल के ऊपर चलेगा. So every decision that you take are determined by the fact that you are a member of an institution. So he is an institutional. He represents institution. रघुकुल का मतलब है institution. सीता वहां पे आती है, वो धरती की बेटी है. She is continuously making choices क्योंकि वो जनक की पुत्री है. जनक की पुत्री is a phrase which is used. Janak doesn't play any role in the Mahabharata other than getting her married. But Janak is the king of Mithila and Videha, and it's a code. It's a code for Upanishads. तो मतलब वो सरस्वती है, उसे समझ आता है, उसको दुनिया मालूम है, वो and she is being given in marriage. She has no choice. She's given in marriage to this man जो पिंजरे के अंदर है और वो पिंजरे के बाहर है. और ये लव स्टोरी है बिटवीन एक जो नर है जो पिंजरे के अंदर है और एक मादा जो पिंजरे के बाहर है. और वो कहती है पहले they are separating Ram. So you have to understand the context. You see, the problem is we try to study the Puranas in a Western way by putting the Puranas in the Katghara. Batao, Ram is right or wrong. This Katghara approach is great for TRPs. It is not good for Upanishad. उपनिषद करना है तो वहाँ कटघरा नहीं होता, न्यायाधीश नहीं होता है. पुराणों में भगवान न्यायाधीश नहीं होते हैं. हमारे यहाँ भगवान न्यायाधीश नहीं होते. भगवान मुनीम होते हैं, अकाउंटेंट. हर चीज का अकाउंट रखते हैं. और ये हमें we have to remember this. Accounting is very important. So Ram is not to be, but we understood what's going on in the story. So Ram is first being told, देखो we have taken a decision, तुमको जंगल जाना है. And जंगल जाना है. Now people say कितना आज्ञाकारी पुत्र है. And that's a wrong reading of the Ramayana. Ram is not doing आज्ञा. He is saying रघुकुल का बड़ा बेटा है. If you don't keep a promise, लोग कहेंगे this family has no integrity. He is coming from an institutional value system upholding, not from a personal choice. It is not father telling a son. It is a Raja telling the Rajkumar कि भैया अगर तुम नहीं जाओगे जंगल, लोग कहेंगे कि क्या रघुकुल कुछ बोलते हैं, कुछ करते हैं, like politicians. रघुकुल नहीं होगा ना. Now that is a very important concept. We should keep in mind. It sounds so great, but this comes to haunt Ram later. Because later he is being told, देखो रघुकुल की मर्यादा रखने के लिए your wife, we know she is pure, we know she is good, we know nothing wrong, but उसका reputation में problem है. अभी reputation में problem है तो सर उसको रानी नहीं बना सकते. तो राजा राम ने रानी का त्याग किया। उसके बाद उसको लोग कहते हैं कि सर यज्ञ करो, तो बोले यज्ञ के लिए तो पत्नी चाहिए। बोले हम पत्नी तो नहीं, दूसरा पत्नी नहीं लाएंगे, हम एकम पत्नी व्रता राम है। तो हमने रानी को त्याग दिया है, पत्नी को नहीं त्यागा, और इसलिए सोने की मूर्ति रखते हैं वहां पे, एफिजी इज केप्ट ओवर देयर। कि एंड सी दिस इज स्प्लिट एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड सूक्ष्म। राजा और पति राम, रामायण इज द स्टोरी ऑफ राजा राम, नॉट पति राम। राम जैसा राजा चाहिए, राम जैसा पति थोड़ा आप सोच लीजिए। एक है कि वो कभी परस्त्री को नहीं देखेंगे, कभी नहीं देखेंगे, एकम पत्नी व्रता राम। कभी 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 हमारे पुराने में और कोई एकम पत्नी व्रता नहीं है जितने राम है। अगर ऐसे पति चाहिए तो ले लीजिए, प्रॉब्लम होगा। तो धर्माधिपति राम राजा राम है। पति धर्म निभाया, हाँ, परस्त्री की तरफ नहीं देखा, दूसरी स्त्री को नहीं देखा। उनके पिता की 3 पत्नियां थी, ही कुड हैव मैरिड। राजा राम इज एकम पत्नी व्रता। तो इट्स एक वचनी, एक बाणी, एक पत्नी। एक वचनी मतलब एक बाण, ही इज अ वेरी स्किल्ड वॉरियर, व्हेन ही लीव्स शूट्स एन एरो इट हिट्स द टारगेट। एक बाणी, एक बार जबान दे दिया है तो जबान दे दिया है, तो जबान दिया है कि मैं रघुकुल की मर्यादा रखूंगा। सो ही इज मर्यादा पुरुषोत्तम। एंड एक वचनी, एंड देयरफॉर एक पत्नी, कि पत्नी only Sita, nobody else. And Sita looks at Ram and realizes कि first time she follows him to the forest, कि वो जब उसको they separated, she says I will go with him, it's her choice. Second time they are separated, Ram goes to fetch her, not because it is his choice, but because it is his duty. Very different. He always says, I am going here, madam, not to save you because you are my wife, but because I am, तुम रघुकुल की कुलवधू हो, मैं कुलवधू को बचाने आया हूँ, मैं पत्नी को बचाने नहीं आया हूं। Now this is a very harsh statement. You have to read Arshia Sattar. Arshia Sattar has done fabulous work on Ramayana and the original Ramayana, and he keeps saying वाल्मीकि रामायण पढ़ो, because उसमें जो nuance है वो लोग पकड़ते नहीं है। Because संस्कृत काव्य में, the old संस्कृत काव्य, they will always leave a story unfinished. They will not tell you everything. They will sort of let you think. नहीं तो अगर पूरी स्टोरी बता दे तो उपनिषद नहीं होगी, बातचीत नहीं होगी। और अगर हम पूरी स्टोरी बता दें, then when will you think? You have to think. It's your life, your decisions.
I heard a very beautiful sort of explanation also what Lord Ram did, that what he did sort of ensured that while history may continue to ask questions of what he did, but he also ensured that nobody ever would ask any questions of Sita. So anyway, but one question over here that comes to my mind. Ram, like all of us, had multiple roles, right? He was a Raghukul, he was the king, the eldest son, so he had that role, and that's the dharma he was following in making this decision. But he was also a husband. He was also a father. See, we all have multiple roles. So again, how's the decision made that this particular role gets precedence? In other words, how do you make the decision?
You see, when the word dharma is used, in the Vedas, when the dharma is used, it is usually used in the royal context. It's about royalty and royal thing. And Ramayana and Mahabharata are not about husbands and sons. They are about kings. ये राजाओं की कहानी है. Remember, they were written between the Mauryan period and the Gupta period. Indian empires were rising, and these are texts which are trying to say अच्छा राजा कौन है. These are not books which are saying अच्छा पति कौन है, अच्छा बेटा कौन है, अच्छा भाई कौन है. No, they are very very clear. ये राजा की कहानी है. Therefore, रघुकुल और कुरुकुल, दो कुलों की बात होती है. रघुकुल और कुरुकुल. And through this, there is Maryada Purush. Remember, Krishna is not a Raja. He's a Gwala. तो ये वर्णाश्रम धर्म में ग्वाला और राजा के रूप बिहेवियर बहुत अलग होंगे. Krishna is the youngest son of a cowherd family. Youngest son of a cowherd family is very different from the eldest son of a royal family. Remember, we are not talking about choices. These are not people not allowed to make choices. So Krishna has this complex role because is he a cowherd? He chooses to be a charioteer. He is, what is his varna? Who is he? He's a mysterious being, and therefore his behavior is very. So when you're talking about multiple roles, we have to understand the context of the story. Ramayana is about a king, Raja Ram. Very, very focused. It's about the people. How the people matter more than the royal family. This not happens today, right? Today, family is far, far more important than the nation.
Again, just trying to bring it back because I'm just trying to see how, what we can get out of all of this, right? So we also have to make decisions, like I was saying, every day. Okay, we could be, we are not royal like Lord Ram, but we also may be a husband, we may be a son, we may be a father, all of that. So let's take a situation which, a man who's married may be facing. He has duties toward his mother. He also has duties toward his wife.
Yes.
But let's say that the mother and the wife fight with each other. So what's he supposed to do?
Who are we talking
What
about?
comes
Jujhar?
first?
जुझार किसके बारे में बात कर रहे हैं?
We're talking about a lot of people.
See, the question is, whatever decision you take, someone is going to be unhappy.
Yeah.
The question is, are you allowing yourself to be the unhappy party? Because the fact is, what is happening in a fight? See, to understand Dharma, the idea of Dharma, before the word of Dharma becomes important, is the idea of the conflict between the forest and the field. Samaved mein, the division is made between the forest and the field. Forest is the world of where the survival of the fittest, where everybody fights over territory. हर piece of meat you fight over territory, जिसको मत्स्य न्याय कहते हैं. धर्म उसका विपरीत होता है. Where the mighty don't overpower the meek, while you make efforts so that the mighty take care of the meek. Now, in this conversation, who is the meek? Husband, mother, wife. Because everybody is screaming and shouting.
Husband.
The one asking the question likes to believe that he is the innocent, but the fact is,
all three think that way, right?
he is the territory over which two alphas are fighting. You are the piece of meat.
Good one.
और दो alpha fight करे, स्त्री रूपी alpha. Hyenas में alpha are females. Amongst elephant, the alphas are females. Alpha is not a male word. It's a gender neutral. But it is Pashu Prakriti. Kyonki neither is doing darshan of the other. Neither is doing darshan of the other. And you have to observe what is going on because there's no justice in this. Remember, the concept of justice and equality doesn't exist in the Indian traditions. They will say कि किसमें दया है to allow the other to exist. Remember, महाभारत में द्रौपदी आने के बाद हम कुंती को भूल जाते हैं. There is no reference to Kunti once Draupadi comes into the picture. क्योंकि घर की चाबी मैंने बहू को सौंप दी, मैं तो चली. That is, किसी को वानप्रस्थ, किसी को छोड़ना पड़ता है, किसी को पाना पड़ता है. बट जब कोई छोड़ने को तैयार नहीं है और कहता है कि नहीं मैं तो नहीं छोड़ूंगी, और दूसरा कहेगा कि मैं भी नहीं छोड़ूंगी, तो देखिए, the system is designed in this complex way because moksha is about what? Letting go of opinions, letting go of relationships, letting go of family, letting go of quarrels. छोड़ो यार, आगे बढ़ो. But when there is a fight, they are not letting go. And they are using language of justice, which is like a mist, which really there is a mist to their ego. Because ahankar, because they are not interested in, the man or the other woman. So it is, मैंने para atma को नहीं देखा. I am only bothered about swajiva, myself, my happiness. मैंने para जीव को नहीं देखा. I have not seen the other. जब तक तुम परजीव को नहीं देखोगे, तब तक तुम परम आत्मा को नहीं समझोगे. So you have to think of the other. So in this conversation, who are you considering? Them or yourself? And if you're considering them, then let them fight. You have to declare independence from mother and wife, which means you better start cooking food, better start doing the laundry, taking care of the children, and say, Mom, I don't need you, and wife, I don't need you. मैं तो मोक्ष प्राप्त कर लिया, सब भाग के आ जाएंगे.
आप मोक्ष में हो ना?
चलो, we have
Let's take some questions now. Yeah.
Devdutt, thank you very much indeed. In the reference to the story of the dove and the king, you mentioned कि ये king का अहंकार था कि वो dove को बचा सकता है. इसको दूसरे शब्दों में इस तरह से कहा जा सकता है that nobody, even the king, cannot interfere with what is the food chain established by nature. Is that right? Am I right in that? And if that is so, how is it that in modern times we have kings who come and tell us that you can eat this and you cannot eat this?
One has to be careful of the story. Remember, you referred to a dove and a hawk, not to two human beings. Food chain exists in nature, प्रकृति में. वहाँ पे डार्विन की प्रिंसिपल चलती है. वहाँ पे मत्स्य न्याय, basically the stories of मत्स्य न्याय. मनुष्य जब आता है, if there were two people in that room, the king can now do something else. And the king is coming. What has happened to today's kings? Most leaders today are leading their own packs or their own herds or their own hives, which means they are alphas or queen bees. कि मैं वो मधुमक्खी, you know, the queen bee, if you look at a hive, there is one queen who decides how everybody else should function. तो महारानी होती है. या जो जंगली कुत्ते होते हैं, वहाँ पे एक मेल होता है जो नरों के बीच में वन अल्फा होता है. Somewhere along the line, politics has become about मत्स्य न्याय, not धर्म. तो राज धर्म के मुखौटे में मत्स्य न्याय चल रहा है. जब आप देख लोगे तो समझ जाओगे और बोलोगे ये मोक्ष चाहिए. Because ये तो सनातन है. This is not new. This is not 21st century phenomena. These stories were written thousands of years ago. There are Udyog Parva में, in the Udyog Parva, people have to understand, most important chapter of Mahabharata is Udyog Parva, where negotiations are taking place. And Krishna is smiling all the time, because everybody is talking about the law, ये ठीक है, वो ठीक है, ये ठीक है. And Krishna says, अरे law तो छोड़ो, नियत को देखो. नियत नहीं होगी तो न्याय कहाँ होगा? तो न्याय तो एक मुखौटा हो जाता है, नियत ही नहीं है. तो I want people to starve. तो उसके लिए मैं तो न्याय के ऊपर न्याय तो निकालूंगा. बेसिकली मुझे श्रापित होना है, क्योंकि भूखे का श्राप तो लगेगा. हिंदू धर्म मानते हो ना, तो श्रापित तो रहोगे. जब तुम सिंहासन पर बैठोगे तो श्राप तो मिलेगा. तलवार जब हाथ में होता है तो श्राप भी आता है, लेकिन जब कृष्ण बनोगे तभी उस श्राप को झेल पाओगे.
So my question is that when you talked
If I
about...
can just, why don't you identify yourself? What's your name?
Hello sir, my name is Prachi Pundir and I'm a student of Purkalyu Development Society.
Okay, great.
So my question is, when you talked about Sita, you called her a woman who makes choices. What would you say about Draupadi, and can you tell us that did she followed her dharma or karma, and explain that? Thank you.
See, in Draupadi's case, the story revolves, you have to understand how she is born. She is not born out of love. Her father doesn't love her mother, and out of love the child is born. Her father is very, very angry and he wants to take revenge on the Kuru clan. And he says, मैं एक ऐसी लड़की को जन्म दूंगा जो कुरु कुल को तोड़ देगी. So she is born of fire and anger. So she's not a normal person. She's an idea. So you should be careful about it. It's born to destroy things. उसमें गुस्सा बहुत है. She is asking for the blood of the men who abused her. I was telling yesterday, Arundhati Subramaniam, the poet, was here, and I was telling her, in the Sanskrit version, we says कि मैं तुम्हारे बालों को सींच के, I will wash my hair with your blood, she tells Dushasan. But in the Tamil version, the dialogue is far more dramatic. She says, I will wash my hair with Kaurava blood. I will comb it with your bones. I will tie it with your intestines. And I will pin your hearts like a flower. That's the violent. Durga ka roop hai, Kali ka roop hai, and Krishna haste hai. Are you sure? Krishna keeps asking. And she says, yes, yes, yes. But when the hairstyle is done, Draupadi is crying because all her 5 children have been killed battlefield. Karma, na? You want something, there's an action and a reaction, which George Bush called collateral damage. युद्ध हुआ, रिवेंज भी मिला, लेकिन उसका तो तुम्हें बलि देना पड़ेगा. अपना बच्चों का बलि दे दिया तुमने. So you got your revenge, but you have to also pay a price. So was justice served? Yeah, if you look at one half of the story, if you look at B.R. Chopra's version of the Mahabharata, abusers were killed. But then you see Draupadi crying with her children, and you're like, kya justice? And that is the narrative. That is what the Mahabharata is trying to communicate. It's not about, did I do my dharma? Because she's famous for listening to husbands. She's famous for managing 5 husbands. There's a very famous passage in which Satyabhama and say that, we are 8 women married to one wife, and we can't make him happy. You are one woman married to 5 husbands. How do you make everybody happy? And she gives a big management lesson. But we don't think about those things. What we're interested in is a dharma. And really, her story is about karma and moksha. Yeah?
Hello, Devdutt, Pattanaik ji. We are major fans of yours, read your books, especially my daughter. Unfortunately, she's not here, and she has a board exam day after. I'm here on her behalf.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I've been reading Amar Chitra Kathas through childhood, watching all the mythological plays and listening to all your stories on Epic, all your episodes on Epic. I want to know that if you surrender to your guru, that is the ultimate, a complete surrender, if you want moksha. How does knowledge of mythology, Upanishads, that also escalates your ego because you feel हमें तो बहुत पता है. और एक तरफ हम कहते हैं कि we want to surrender. And acceptance, the positive, graceful acceptance. So, sometimes there is a feud. You want to read, you want to absorb things. And on the other hand, you want to practice this all the time. So how do you balance it out in today's age, whether you're a wife, you have to go out socially, you're a mother?
So, you see, there are different kinds of people in the world. The danger is with looking for one answer because we assume that all human beings are a homogeneous breed of people and therefore they need one answer. But the whole karma philosophy is that har aadmi ka karma alag hota hai. Some people can't take decisions. They don't want to take responsibility. When I don't want to take responsibility, I can't take decisions. Ya meri mati bhram hai, I'm confused. That is the time when I need a guru. But not everybody is like that. Some people want to take responsibility. They are capable of thinking independently. They want to take their own decisions. In which case, the guru will direct them and help them become independent and figure out their own path. So we are all in different phases of life. Like जब बच्चा होता है, तो बच्चे को आप नहीं बोल सकते independent बनो. The child is dependent on the mother. But imagine a 40-year-old man is dependent on the mother, then you're like, अच्छा बाबा, थोड़ा अपनी जिंदगी संभाल ले, आगे बढ़, उपनिषद कर, शादी मत कर, but मुझे छोड़. This is the whole thing. The mother is the first guru. You can surrender to the mother, but then when the bahu comes, the mother also has to let go. The son also has to let go, because ये ऋतु चक्र है. कभी लेना पड़ता है, कभी देना पड़ता है. Sometimes you are dependent, sometimes you become independent, but eventually you have to be dependable. Yeah? Thank you.
Dr. Devdutt Pattanaik, thank you very much. Thank you all as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Perhaps you can catch him on the way down.
Thank you so much. It was an extremely enlightening session, sirs. And I would say that I achieved moksha the day I got married and started cooking for my wife. So it's been 8 years and I'm still cooking. which is great. But thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. The book signing will happen right here on stage. So you can buy your books from the bookshop and come here. And after that, we'll start the next session. Thank you so much, sirs. And I would like to call Ms. Nazia Azuddin to come up and felicitate them, please. Can we have a big round of applause, guys? One round. I know we are all hungry and you want to catch some food, but thank you, Mr. Devlok Pattanaik. Thank you, Mr. Jujhar Singh. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Nazia.